Hi there, Emily Midgett here with you today from 6th Street Sundries, and I am super excited to be helping OLO Markers introduce their new alcohol markers. These markers were just debuted at Creativation last week, and they are just incredibly beautiful, vibrant markers. And there are a few special features that make them a little bit different from other alcohol markers on the market, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Here I'm just showing you a swatch card that I have created. This is a download that you will find available on the OLO website. And you can see just the gorgeous array of colors that they have available. There are 128 colors, and they are alcohol-based markers. And so they are like traditional alcohol markers that they work together to blend with each other. You can see that they have a brush and a chisel nib. And then there is an area in the center that unscrews so that you can create customized markers to fit your own personal artistic needs. You can use a brush nib on both ends. You can use a chisel nib on both ends. They also have this neat that it reminds me of like a paintbrush, the end of a paintbrush. It doesn't have any ink in it or anything. You just screw it on the end and you can hold it like a traditional paintbrush. So it's really a great way to customize your markers to fit your own personal needs. Now what I'm showing here on the screen, I have created some swatches using these markers. OLO was kind enough to send me the full set of these markers. And what I like to do with my alcohol markers is I like to create little 2x2 swatch cards with my favorite color combinations. I do this with other markers and my colored pencils as well. And I'll put them in the little coin pockets like we do for our ink swatches for stamp pads. And so what I've got here is I have taken almost all of the color families from the OLO marker families, and I have created individual swatches of my favorite color combinations. And so this makes a really quick and easy reference for when I want to color something. I just grab that color swatch and I figure out which colors I want to use, and then I can just start coloring. There's no guesswork involved. And that's one of the really great things about these markers, is that they kind of have taken the guesswork out of it for you. There's no trying to figure out which colors will work nicely together. They come in groups of 2, 3, and 4, and they work beautifully together. They blend so smoothly and just like butter. They're just wonderful. And I will have all of those ink swatches in still photos up on my blog, and I'll link to that in the description below so that you can use that as a reference for yourself. So now I'm just going to show you some, just how smoothly these markers blend together, just on some scratch paper. I do like to keep the tip of my alcohol markers pointed away from me. I find that that gives me really good control, and I find that I can blend really smoothly if I'm kind of pushing the ink out away from me. If I'm, instead of trying to force the ink to work together, I use the tip of that marker to blend those edges together and to make a really nice, smooth, seamless blend. One other way that you can use these markers is you can use the tip-to-tip technique, which basically you are taking the tip of the lighter marker and touching it to the tip of a darker marker, and then putting that lighter marker to your paper. And as that darker ink fades away on when you're applying it to the paper, it will start to fade away and leave that lighter ink color of the marker that you're using. So you'll get that kind of very smooth, lovely ombre from dark to light. And you can see that I've used some of the really lovely kind of a watermelon rosy pink color family to do some coloring on this rose illustration of mine. And it's just incredible the amount of depth that you can achieve with these markers. They really are quite lovely. So I thought I would just show you some coloring today. I've got another illustration. This is one of my peony illustrations. And I thought I would just show you some coloring using these markers. I've got some colors from one of the purple families. This is one of the violet families. And it has, I have 6 different markers here, and I had some technical difficulties, so I had to refilm this section of the marker. That's why the lighting kind of changes and my nail polish goes away. But so when I'm using alcohol markers, I like to take the tips off of the markers and then kind of put the marker inside the lid of the marker while I'm not using it, just to keep it from drying out. My house is kind of dry in the winter, and so I don't want to take a chance on them drying out too quickly. Now these purple markers, they are very, very juicy. The ones that I received are prototypes. And I have talked to the people at OLO about how super juicy these were, and they said that they are aware of the problem and that they have addressed it, and it will not be like that in the markers that people are actually going to receive in the summertime. So you can see I have 6 different markers here. They're all in the violet family. They start from super, super dark, almost black, all the way down to almost completely transparent with just a tiny hint of purple. And I'm going to do 3 different petals for you today. The first one was using the very, very darkest marker and not using that V1.1, that super, super light marker. I only used the 5 darkest markers. The second petal that's slightly on top of that petal in the back, that is, I'm going to use all 6 of the markers. I'm going to show you what a difference it makes to add that extra little, those highlights in with that V1.1 marker. So you can see that I'm keeping the tip of the marker pointed away from me. They're blending beautifully and smoothly together. And I'm using those markers and blending with the tip of the marker, using that to blend out any harsh edges between the colors next to each other. I just kind of lightly, with almost a circular motion, but it's not quite circular, just lightly blend that with the very tip of the marker. And you can see what a difference it makes to add that extra little V1.1, those little highlights with the V1.1. So now with this third petal that we're going to use, that first one we used just the 5 darkest markers. The second one we used all 6 markers. Now this top petal, because it's closer to the light source, it's going to be a little bit less intense, a little bit less shadowed. So we're going to use the 5 lightest markers. We're not using that super, super dark marker. And we're going to start with the V2.7 and work our way down. That's the second to darkest marker, and work our way down to the lightest marker. So there's V2.4, and we're just going to keep pushing that color out. You notice I'm rotating the paper. That way I can keep that brush nib, the tip of it, pointed away from me. It gives me the better control over where the color is going, and it also, I think it helps to the colors blend a little bit better. So now I've got the V2.3, and I'm leaving just the very, very edge completely white, and we're going to touch that with a very light hand with the V1.1, just to add those little highlights in there. And you'll see that the very, very light alcohol marker, it does work very intensely with those darker markers. So I am going back in and adding a little bit more intensity with some of the middle range markers, while that V1.1 is still a little bit wet, because the alcohol does work together to kind of smooth things out and blend things together without much work on my part. So each of those is using a different color gradation, and you can see how intense and gorgeous and vibrant that finished product is. I'm so impressed with these markers. They just really are wonderful. Now I thought I would show you a way that paper crafters can use that chisel nib. That chisel nib has a little bit wider base, and so it's great for working with larger areas on your cardstock rather than the smaller images that we're used to. Now with these OLO markers, you get 2 halves. You get the chisel nib and you get the brush nib. The chisel nib is on the gray side. You get a dark gray and a light gray side. The dark gray side is the chisel nib. Now I'm using, this is a quartet of pretty periwinkle blue markers. They're blue violet, and I'm just laying down the color and blending them together, and I'm going to use a word die cut, or a word die, to create an ombre die cut, and I'm covering a lot of ground with those chisel nibs because they are a little bit wider than the brush nib. Now, one of the great things about these OLO markers is that each marker half contains 2 milliliters of usable ink. In other markers, there is only 2 milliliters period inside your marker. And you have to deal with the fact that there is a core inside your marker. Not only does that waste ink, because you can only get between 65 and 70% of the ink out of your marker, it creates less seamless flow. The ink inside of these OLO markers is free flowing inside the marker, which creates seamless flow while you are putting that marker to the paper. It really is an ingenious new tool for us to use in our craft room. Well, that's all for me today. I hope you enjoyed seeing these brand new markers in action. They really are wonderful new tools, and they will be a great complement to other coloring mediums that you already have in your craft room. If you wanted to take a look at my blog, I do have still photos of all of the color swatches so that you can use them for a reference if you decide to purchase these markers yourself, as well as lots of other information about the markers themselves and some special introductory pricing. So if you'd like to take a look at my blog, it's emilymidgett.com. And if you'd like the video, maybe hit the subscribe button, and so you can see some more content from me in the future. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.